How do you know when something that is in the Bible is not really, in the Bible? There's a whole lot of stuff in there that was not in there in the beginning, but was added for political and other reasons. There are also some things that are not readily apparent upon a first read. Both of these situations apply to the Sermon on the Mount. Now we're going to dive in a little deeper and discover what was not supposed to be in there, and also who and who wasn't there, despite what you may have thought all your life. Now that's fun stuff. Now speaking of fun, we're also going to meet a new member of the Rood crew tonight, all the way from California. Why are we doing all this? Because fun is the name of the game at the end of the sixth day after the sun is set on Shabbat Night Live!
It's Shabbat Night Live from Charlotte, North Carolina, with your host, Michael Rood. Join Michael's guest host, Scott Laird, and Matthew Hall as they welcome, from a Rood Awakening International Partner Relations Department, Angela Sampson. Now, here he is, the Director of the Chronological Gospel International Relations, Scott Laird.
Hey, Shabbat Shalom, Torah fans. Welcome to Shabbat Night Live with Michael Rood, the most fun you can have on a Friday night this side of a loaf of challah and a glass of Manischewitz. Hey, but none of this would be any fun without my co-host, the ministry coordinator for a Rood Awakening International, the leader of Aviv Worship. Please welcome Matthew Hall.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. How are you?
I'm great.
Very good, very good. You know, we're going to have a lot of fun because we're changing things up. We have a ton of stuff.
What do you mean? We change things up around here? No way.
Never. Same thing every day. We're going to have, it's sort of like the manna. We're going to have the same thing every day for 40 years. Anyway, we're going to introduce you to everyone, everyone who's new at Rood Awakening,
right,
which would be Angela Sampson, who is our brand new Partner Relations Director. She's taking over for Annie Reed. Annie has left Rood Awakening to pursue a new career. We miss her, but we wish her all the best. I think she's got a great thing going. Angela is going to tell us a bit about herself tonight. She's worked for some very big organizations that everyone will recognize, and you'll probably recognize her husband. You've met her husband. He's a big guy.
Yeah.
You cannot miss her husband. And we're going to talk about him as well. And also we're going to introduce a brand new teaching from Michael Rood, and you can only get it by donation this month. Now, those who were at Passover, by the way, have seen it, and they're the only people who saw it. So, of course, the most important and funnest part of all, Michael's teaching tonight. It's the Lessons on the Way to Sinai, Part 5. Now, what you're going to see tonight is different than what you've seen on the DVD. We've edited it into a half-hour show, so you can get most of it, the most of it, that is, during the time that we have on Shabbat Night Live. And speaking of teachings, stay tuned after the show for another teaching. This is Michael's brand new show, televised only in Europe. It's called Journey to the Center of the Word, and it's 1 hour, so stay tuned for that. So it'll go 2 hours tonight, the way that's going to go. Now, speaking of television programs like Shabbat Night Live, it is time for our brand new feature, This Week on the Rood Tube. Yep. Now, this is where we tell you what programs are on when all over the world this week. Now, next up on the Inspiration Network in the UK, you can watch Lessons on the Way to Sinai Part 5 next Friday at 1 p.m. UK time. And then on Saturday, July 11th at 1 a.m., just barely into Saturday, or the Shabbat, I guess we should say. On the Inspiration Network, you can watch the entirety of tonight's Shabbat Night Live next Shabbat at 1 a.m. UK time. That's the way that works out in the UK. And for the Gospel Channel and Omega TV, the Gospel Channel in Europe and Omega TV in Iceland, it is Journey to the Center of the Word, the program that you're going to see tonight. You'll be watching the Ark of the Covenant, Part 1 this week. Check your broadcast schedule by clicking the TV tab on roodawakening.tv for all of the broadcast times, because we play a lot of times on Gospel TV and Omega. We're all over the place there.
Right.
Yeah, we're also on roodawakening.tv, of course, with all the classic shows and a lot of watch-free items. You should go to the Biblical Teachings tab on our website. There's a whole lot of watch-free episodes of Michael's classic teachings that you may have never seen before.
Right. I think that's a good resource for a lot of people. And
it is, yeah.
I think it's new enough to where people might not even know it's there. So it's neat.
And it's all categorized. You can go there by biblical archaeology. There's books of the Bible.
Yep.
It's all separated, and you just go in there, pick the one you want, click on it, and then you'll come to a page for that specific teaching, and you'll get to watch it free there, get some information on it. You can even order from that page, so it's an all-in one-stop shop for that particular teaching. We're also on Enlace in the Spanish-speaking world. We're on YouTube, of course, which you'll find all of Michael's teachings. iTunes, we've also got Google TV and Roku, on which you can watch SNL on demand, Shabbat Night Live. That's how we term it here on the show. But no matter where you live and which Michael Rood programs you are watching, today is July 3rd. This is the time of year that Yeshua delivered the Sermon on the Mount.
Right.
You know, you always read the Bible and you never think about, you know, before you get into something like the chronological Gospels, you never really realize when he did these things. You always think, you know, like in the movies, right?
Right. It all happened in about 24 hours.
Yeah, exactly. It was always hot. It was always sunny. Everyone was always, you know, thirsty and hungry, and Yeshua fed them, and, you know, the same thing happened every day.
Yeah.
So, well, I guess in the desert it did happen that way. 40 years, you're going to eat the same thing every day. Yeah. Anyway, we know...
What voice is that? Where does that come from? Is that just a made-up voice?
I need to push it back down.
Okay.
We know that thanks to the astronomically and agriculturally corrected biblical Hebrew calendar is how we know that Yeshua delivered the Sermon on the Mount at this time of year. Specifically this week, we are on the third Shabbat of Tammuz. By the way, if you haven't got your calendar, get it now. There it is. We never run out of these things, because if we do run out, we reorder.
Right.
Because they're so popular.
Yep.
Right? I mean, this year they were what, 1995, something like that? Yeah.
Yeah, it was under $20.
Under $20. And last year they were closer to 30, I think. And so it's, you know, they were 33% off last year's price, which is great.
Right.
So good resource to have and doesn't cost you a lot of money. So we're on the third Shabbat of Tammuz, not the third Tabat of Shammuz, which would be the biblical month named after the killer whales in captivity.
Okay.
But again, I don't know where this stuff's coming from. It's crazy. It's Friday night. So anyway, this was the time of year that Yeshua delivered the Sermon on the Mount. We want to bring up two very interesting points about this sermon that maybe you didn't know. The first thing I find very interesting is a note on page 102 of the chronological gospel. So let's go there. Page 102. If you have the Codex version, which Michael refers to it as, or the Educator's edition, which is the big binder, it's the same page on either one. And in the iBooks version, what is it there?
We're on page 218.
218 in the iBooks version. Now, iBooks or iTunes? What do we call it? That's iBooks.
It's iBooks.
Right.
So you would open up the iBooks app and then go to the store and search for chronological Gospels.
All right, there you go.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. So now this is after the sermon is done. We're not going to go through the Sermon on the Mount. There's a lot of detail in here. I do encourage you to do it, though. It's great. It starts on page 97. It's event number 62 in Yeshua's ministry. But we're going to go to the end of the sermon now, and it tells us something about who heard the message in the first place.
Right.
You know, you always see the movies, and we assume that Yeshua was on this mountain, and there was the great multitude listening to him, all sitting on the ground as they normally do, and he spoke to them. But this is a little different, and we have a clue as to what exactly happened here in the notes. You know, the chronology of putting together all the Gospels is one thing,
right,
which I think Michael did a great job of in the first place. But the greatest thing, I think, is the notes that he put in here.
Yeah.
It's like having all his, you know, personal notes.
You remember those little Cliff's notes we used to be able to get? And
yeah.
It's just, Michael puts the Cliff notes in there.
That is a good way to term it.
Sums everything up and really brings context and depth to it. And I think that's one of the reasons it's so precious to this ministry and to Michael is it's one thing to just take you know, scriptures and write it down and then put it in order. It's another thing to take years and years to break it down.
Yeah, that's right. And that's what he's done.
Yeah,
he's spent years and years breaking it down. Had a team of people working with him, and the result is what we see here. Now, speaking of which, the note we want to read is page 102 at the bottom. So now, this is referring to Matthew 7, verse 28. What does Michael say about that?
Only his disciples who climbed the mountain were there to hear the message. That's in Matthew 5:1.
Okay.
While the multitude stayed below and waited for him to meet them on their ground. Matthew the Levite was there, but was not yet following Yeshua full time until event 67, Matthew 9:9.
Interesting. So, you know, I read that for the first time and went,
right,
wow, and you read it, and he's right. Only the disciples went up with him. And you think, wow, okay, so then this was something private. Yeah. It wasn't for the multitude.
Yeah. And there's significance behind that.
Yeah.
There's got to be.
Yes, absolutely. So then, of course, you dive in there and go, well, what did he say? And why was it so private? Why didn't he release this to everybody?
It's funny how when we get left out of conversations, we really want to know what someone's saying, but we're in the conversation and we get distracted and we just don't pay attention.
Yeah, right. 3 days, 3 nights in the grave. What are you talking about, Yeshua? I don't know. What's for lunch?
Yeah, exactly.
So, and it's interesting too that we always assume that those who wrote the Gospels were there the whole time. Matthew, Mark, all.
Right.
And it says Matthew, the Levite, was not there,
Mm-hmm.
but was not yet was there, but was not yet following Yeshua until full time until event number 67. So he's not even there yet. Mm-hmm. We're event number 62. So he's there. He's part of the multitude.
Kind of an observer.
An observer, yeah. And you think, okay, wow. Well, if he was an observer and he wrote this book, how did he get? He must have talked to the disciples afterward and went, well, what did he say?
Sure.
And wrote it down. So because he wasn't part of the conversation. So all this background stuff becomes very interesting, and it's almost like it starts playing the movie in your mind of how this went, right?
Right.
Interesting. So another interesting thing about this Sermon on the Mount is the Lord's Prayer, as it's commonly termed in this day and age, or how it ends specifically, because we always say, the end of the Lord's Prayer.
Right.
But there's something about that is on page 100, just a couple pages back. This is very interesting here. Okay, so the last few verses of the Lord's Prayer says, give us our daily bread, forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors, and do not lead us into the hands of a test, but deliver us from peril. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. It's not there. It's not there. It just says amen. The doxology, for thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever, says Michael in another note here, is not in any of the early Greek texts or in the ancient Hebrew Matthew, which is the subject of the Raiders of the Lost Book.
Right.
Nor does it appear in the pattern of the prayer taught to another group of disciples 7 months later in event number 141. So that is something that is made up. It's put in there. That's crazy to think about it, because we go on this thinking that, oh, well, that's what Yeshua said. That's what the Lord said. That's what we'll say.
Yeah. There's a lot of assumptions, I think, within Christianity, within religious movements, where, it's pretty easy. I think that scripture that says, teachers, beware, because you're going to be held more accountable.
Yes.
Because the sheep are going to go where you tell them to go. And that's the downside of being a sheep, is that you have to trust where your shepherd's taking you.
Right. Now, you've been a shepherd of a flock. You've been a pastor before. Mm-hmm. So were you very, aware of that, very ominous that, gosh, I better be careful what I'm teaching here?
I think I was young. I was in my mid-20s,
mm-hmm.
and I didn't quite grasp the concept or the gravity of being a teacher in that position. I was more energetic, enthusiastic,
right.
Evangelistic type. Let's go take the world for Jesus. And,
gotcha.
And so there, I wasn't as entrenched in the truth aspect. I was more walking in the Spirit, and then sprinkling truth on it whenever it was convenient.
Right. And you started off as a youth pastor, right? So and that's what youth.
And that was my job description.
Sure.
But I would preach on a Sunday here and there, and it was just, it was intimidating, but I think that's more when it set in that I was, these people are looking to me for truth or for direction or guidance. And
it's a lot of pressure.
It is pressure, yeah.
Well, these notes that we're mentioning here are not only are only available, that is, in one Bible, this one right here, the only one on earth, the Chronological Gospels. And if you don't already have one, I suggest you get one. And when you do so, you can get one and get another one for a friend, pass it along.
Mm-hmm.
They're only $69 each. And it's well worth it. I mean, you think there's all 4 Gospels in here, the Acts and Revelation, but it's the notes. It's the insight you're going to get from no other source. That's the greatest thing.
Did you ever see that movie, The Book of Eli?
Yes, I have.
Yes. When the truth, the truth is priceless, and and when you really try to put a price tag on it, I think is when we get in trouble. And when you get that in your hand and it's tangible and you're reading it, you realize the price tag.
Indeed. It is indeed priceless. Now, speaking of friends, Michael Rood and Matthew sitting here, we are going to introduce you to Angela Sampson very soon. Angela runs our West Coast office in Huntington Beach, California. Yes, we have a West Coast office. We'll learn all about what she does for Rood Awakening International, how she will likely get to speak to you as a supporter of this ministry, and her husband, a wonderful guy, who you just can't miss at any Rood Awakening event. We'll get into why. But before we welcome Angela, we need to thank the person who made it all possible for her to join us tonight, and that person would be you. Your support enables us to expand the true gospel of the kingdom through Michael Rood's teaching materials, our prison ministry, our service to widows and orphans, and victims of terror in Israel. It's all because of you. So, first of all, thank you. And secondly, would you continue that support tonight? Here's how you can support the work of A Rood Awakening International right now. Now, speaking of gifts, we are very fortunate to have tonight's guest with us this evening. She is giving her gifts and talents to the work of the kingdom through A Rood Awakening's brand new West Coast office in Huntington Beach, California. Please welcome Angela Sampson. How are you, Angela?
Hi, I'm good. How are you, Scott?
Good, good, thanks. Well, Shabbat Shalom to you.
Likewise. Shabbat Shalom to you too.
It's it's dark here already, but I'm assuming it's going to get dark there in California in 2 or 3 hours or so. So we appreciate you joining us while you're still getting things ready for Shabbat. Now, you have a very interesting past. You have a husband that we were talking about earlier who's maybe very recognizable to some people. Tell us how you guys met and how you first got into Hebrew roots. I understand that he was doing it for a while and didn't tell you.
He was actually. It's a great story. So I met him through a mutual friend. This mutual friend was a very close friend of mine and a very close friend of his. We were actually kind of set up on a blind date to kind of do a double date together, really for our friend's birthday. So Jamal had picked me up, and I was just really intrigued by him and wanted to know more about him. And he was just such a sweet guy, not your typical NBA player. So with that being said, we started off on a great friendship, and I would just call and ask him questions, and you could tell that he was just starting his walk with the Father. And I just wanted to know more about what he was doing, and it was probably a couple months into our friendship where he had said, do you trust me? And I said, well, yeah, I trust you. I mean, we're friends. I've only known you for a couple of months, but yeah, I trust you. And he said, well, I want to take you to a church conference in Colorado. And I said, okay. And he said, well, I go, well, what is it about, or who is it, or who's speaking, or what church, or what ministry? And he just said, if you trust me, then you won't ask any questions and you'll just come with me to Colorado.
Oh boy.
So, yeah.
So how did that all end up? Now, first of all, you hit the nail on the head. Jamal is your husband. He's an NBA or retired NBA player.
Yes.
And so when the two of you go anywhere, I mean, he stands out because he's taller than everyone else, right? I mean,
Just a little taller. I'm 5'4" and he's 6'11".
Oh, just a little difference. Okay, so anyway, so you went with him to Colorado. What happened next?
I went with him to Colorado. I remember signing in. I told them my name, and I remember us walking in around 7 p.m. for what was going to be the start of Shabbat Night Live. I got in, I sat down, I saw a set completely done up, and I was quite impressed with the setup actually, but didn't know what I was getting myself into. And then as soon as Michael came up, I thought it was a joke, to be quite honest. I looked at Jamal and I said, "Are you serious? Like, what is this?" And then I started hearing Michael speak, and then I probably had like a look of just perplexity. Like, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know if it was a joke. Sure enough, it wasn't a joke, because I was there the whole weekend and kind of enjoyed myself towards the end of that weekend, but had a lot of questions, needless to say.
Wow. Okay. So how long ago was that now?
That's been a little over 2 years now.
Okay. All right. So then things obviously progressed. You guys were dating at that point, I'm assuming, and then you got married.
Yeah. We
Okay.
got married just this past Passover, a week before Passover.
Good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So now, what intrigued you to work for this crazy guy on stage that you saw 2 years ago?
You know, I'll tell you, Scott, it was quite the journey for myself. The last 10 years of my life have basically consisted of working in a for-profit company, which I'm sure many people know as Ernst Young. It was always my dream to work for one of the top Big Four consulting firms, and I finally had the opportunity to do so. I was working at Ernst Young out in San Francisco, and that's really when the feeling started of, okay, there has to be more to life. Like, I finally gotten to the stage. I finally got to where I want to be, and now here I am trying to make it to partner at Ernst Young, and just felt empty the whole time. So after being at Ernst Young for quite some time, I felt the need that I just needed to resign and really pursue other avenues that I felt like the Father was calling me to. And that's what led me to moving to Dallas and working for the American Heart Association. So I was with the Heart Association for a couple of years, and in that process of fundraising and really putting campaigns together, that's really when it just started boiling within me to want to do what I'm doing at the Heart Association for a ministry, for something that I truly believe in, something that I knew was going to make a lasting impression, something I knew was going to really help people in a way that the Heart Association couldn't help people, Ernst Young couldn't help people, and that was really save people and have them come to the full realization of the Torah and the actual truth. So a couple of years later, Jamal had actually sent me a message, and he said, "Hey, Ange, they're hiring at Rood." He saw it on Facebook, and he said, I think you should apply. I think it's time." And this is when he had just proposed to me, and he knew my struggle and just wanting to do more for a ministry that I believed in. So I applied, and right after we got married, found out I got the position, and here I am serving the ministry full time.
Wow, great. So tell everyone, what exactly are you doing with the experience you have with Ernst Young and it was the Red Cross, you said? No, sorry, the American Heart Association.
Yeah, the American.
So what are you doing for the Rood Awakening ministry now?
Sure. So my title is Partner Relations, and a big part of that is really just taking care of our partners. The Rood Awakening ministry has partners all around the world, and I know that a passion and concern of Michael's was to always have his partners engaged and really in on what the ministry was doing, and really the way to be able to bring just the people of ones that are walking in the Torah, bring them all together, is really to engage them and to really share and create this experience for people. And with working at Ernst Young and at the Heart Association, I have built a talent on really being able to cultivate relationships, letting people know what's going on, being that voice and that resource to individuals that may have questions, that may be searching and seeking. So I hope that with the expertise that I have from the other organizations, I'm able to bring it forth at a Rood Awakening.
Great. Okay. So Where do you hope to take Rood away? Where do you hope the ministry goes? What's your dream to see us go? Where would you like to see us go?
Yeah, probably that it's not, when you tell people about following the commands, and when you tell people that a lot of people like to associate ones with a title, or when you tell people you're messianic, or you're following the Torah, or you're just really doing the simple things that the Bible tells us to do, for it not to be just something so foreign to people, where people have heard about following the commandments, people have heard about observing the Sabbath. So to where it's not so foreign to people is what I would love. I'd love for that seed to just be planted amongst the world, really, so that people are aware of the importance and what it is, what value the Bible carries, and the importance of following Torah.
Wonderful. Okay, well, thanks, Angela. How can people get in touch with you in the meantime?
Sure. So I am on the West Coast, as you had mentioned, in Huntington Beach. We are on Pacific Standard Time, so if you would like to give me a phone call, you definitely can, or send me an email at angela@michaelrood.tv, and then my phone number is, haven't quite memorized that.
On the computer still, that's all right.
Is 704-754-4698. That is my direct line. You can give me a call anytime, and I will be there to answer. But if I am on the phone with a partner, please feel free to drop me an email, and I'm happy to respond back as soon as I get the chance to.
All right. Well, thanks, Angela. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
And in just a minute, we'll be joining Michael in the Tent of Abraham for the Kiddush. And tonight's teaching, Lessons on the Way to Sinai, Part 5. And if you like what you see tonight, you can get the entire DVD set available on our website at roodawakening.tv. Just click on the Store tab at the top of the page. And remember to stay tuned after Michael's teaching tonight for another teaching. This is the brand new show in Europe, never before broadcast in North America. It is Journey to the Center of the Word. A whole hour more of teaching tonight from Michael Rood right after Shabbat Night Live. But first, take a good look at this.
You are so precious to the Almighty that He gave up His firstborn Son for you. By His sacrifice, you were redeemed. Right now, when you make a donation of $25 or more to a Rood Awakening International, Michael Rood will send you The Redemption of the Firstborn, a brand new DVD teaching you can't get anywhere else.
This is an opportunity for a father and a mother to recognize that their firstborn son does not belong to them, and that firstborn son belongs to the Almighty.
It's not for sale, and it's not on YouTube. It's a special teaching reserved just for you when you donate $25 or more to a Rood Awakening in July. Call today or visit our website to receive The Redemption of the Firstborn, a brand new exclusive teaching from Michael Rood.
We here at Rood Awakening International wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to all of our ambassadors who are supporting Bring It to the World.
Gracias.
Toda. Dankeschön.
Your support is changing lives.
Dankjewel.
谢谢.
Thank you.
With your support, we've been able to send our materials to those who need it most, free of charge. Thank you to all of our ambassadors who are supporting Bring It to the World.
The last night that Yeshua was with his disciples, the Last Supper before the Passover was sacrificed, he took bread and he took wine. He said before that Abraham saw his day and rejoiced. But what does that mean? He saw his day and rejoiced. Well, it was the Melchizedek, the king of righteousness, that brought forth bread and wine to Abraham. He blessed the Most High with the blessing that Abraham taught Yitzhak, Yitzhak taught Yaakov, and is still spoken today. Whenever bread and wine is served at a Jewish table, whenever it is Sabbath, especially around the world, the bread and the wine are brought forth with this blessing. Baruch atah Yehovah, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pari hagafen. Blessed are you,
Yehovah, our Elohim, King of the universe, the creator of the fruit of the vine. And Yeshua then said, blessed are you, Yehovah, our Elohim, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. He said, this represents my body, which will be broken for you. This represents my shed blood that pays the sin penalty because of the broken covenant. As often as we do this, we do this in remembrance of him. So break the bread, share the wine, and we do this in remembrance of him until he comes.
Welcome. You are just in time for an adventure. And today's adventure takes us through time and how lessons learned can affect us in the future. As the Israelites trekked through the desert, the Almighty tested their hearts to see if they would follow him. Time and again, they failed him. Now we fast forward to the time of Saul, who disobeys the Almighty in a battle with the Amalekites. As Michael Rood explains, it was a mistake that forever changed Saul's destiny as king, all because he didn't learn from the lessons on the way to Sinai.
And so now we are at the rock. In this rock, you can see that the rock, as David says, the rock which is higher than I, you can see that rock still out in the desert, right in Horeb, which means desert, that out of both sides of it, you can even see it by satellite, that there are rivers, 2 rivers of water that come out of the rock that flow down into the camp of Israel, and this is where they stay. They're able to water their flocks, the entire nation. This is not a little rock that water comes out like a spigot. No, you have an entire nation, 600,000 men, plus women and children, plus all of their cattle, as it says in King James, or flocks, as we say in English, referring to sheep and goats. And so it's able to take care of all of them. So while they are there at the rock, at Rephidim, the Amalekites come and fought with Israel. Why? Spoils without work. We came out of Egypt. It says in the King James that we were to borrow from the Egyptians, but the word that's there for borrow, every other time in the Bible, it's ask. Only there is it translated as borrow. No, we didn't borrow, we asked. Said, please give us your gold and your silver. And they gave it to us willingly. We walked out of Egypt with the spoils of that nation, and that nation had been wealthy from the time that the wealth of the world poured into Egypt during the 7 years of famine during Joseph's time. And that was less than 200 years before, at this particular point in time, that Joseph was there in the land of Egypt. In the 4th generation, we came out with great spoils, and so the Amalekites, they want it all without working for it. They are just going to kill the nation of Israel, destroy us, and then they're going to have the spoils without any work. Who are the Amalekites? We go back to our earlier sessions and we find out that in Genesis chapter 36, it tells us about Esau. And Esau, one of Esau's sons, is named Eliphaz. And this is, I believe it's Genesis 36, verse 10. It begins telling us of Esau, his sons, and the dukes that come out of him. And so one of his sons, his name is Eliphaz, and Eliphaz has a son, and his name is Amalek. So this is actually a grandson of Esau. And so Amalek, who is of the offspring of Esau, the grandson, his offspring, now numbering in the hundreds of thousands, now come to destroy Israel and to take the spoils. And in verse 9, and so Moses said unto Yehoshua, choose us out men and go out and fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the rod of God in my hand. And so he's going to be overseeing. He's going to stand at the top of the hill with a rod, and so you go down, choose these men to go down and fight. You know, I'm going to have the women and children back here. You get the warriors together. So Joshua did as Moshe said, and he fought with Amalek. And Moses and Aaron and Hur went up to the top of the hill. And it came to pass that when Moses held up his hand, that Israel prevailed. And when he let down his hand, then Amalek prevailed. And so it didn't take a long time before they caught on that, there's a direct relationship to Israel prevailing and Moses' hand being up. And so, after a while, during this battle, the old man, I mean, he's at this point, he's 80 years old, and for him to hold his hands up while these men are down there fighting, this is a battle for Moses. But, he has to keep his hands up. And so when they saw this was what was happening, that if he's got a hand up, then wonderful. Israel's prevailing. He drops his hands, and then all of a sudden it's like, a sweep, and the Amalekites are prevailing. And so Aaron and Hur took a stone and set it there, and Moses sat on top of it. And so then Aaron and Hur then lifted up his hands, one on one side, one on the other. With both hands up, they found, wow, that Israel really prevails with both of his hands up in the air, reaching up to heaven. And it says that they steadied his hands until the going down of the sun. In verse 13, and Yehoshua discomfited Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. They slaughtered them. They took them down with the edge of the sword. And we see who was the aggressor here. It was Amalek who was the aggressor. And it says, and Yehovah said unto Moses, write this for a memorial in a book, and rehearse it in the ears of Yehoshua. Let him know. Tell him about this. And write this as a memorial, because they need to understand these following things. First, I'm going to utterly put out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. Now, it's going to take quite a while to do this. And we're going to see that he actually says that he will fight against Amalek from generation to generation, as it says in just a couple verses. And it says that Moses built an altar. And we see again, every time a significant revelation happens with all of the fathers, from Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, we see them building altars of remembrance. These are not altars of sacrifice, they're altars of remembrance. Something to stay in the land, a marker in the land. And again, Israel, when we come out of Egypt, we're told to not take down any of the ancient landmarks in the land. We may not know what they are, but the Almighty knows what they are, and Moses tells us what they are, and we can still see some of these in the land today. They're still there. Even to this day, now, over 3,000 years later, over 3,500 years later. And so he built an altar, and he called the name of the altar Yehovah Nissi. Yehovah Nissi. Now, we're going to find out exactly what that means and why it is called Yehovah Nissi. But to do this, we need to go back to Exodus chapter 3. And this is when Moses is out in the land of Midian tending the sheep of Yitro, his father-in-law. And the burning bush, Moses has now turned aside because he sees a bush that's burning and it's not consumed. And so he sees this is unusual. A bush burning, it's not that unusual. A bush burning that never is consumed, as he stands there for hour after hour with these sheep and it doesn't burn away. This looks like some good wood to have, for the campfire. If it burns this long, it can burn for hours and it doesn't consume itself. Oh, this is something special. And so he goes, and the voice of the Almighty speaks to him and tells him that this is the voice of the Elohim of his fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so Moses takes the shoes off his feet, and he is then told that he must go back and lead Israel out of Egypt. And in verse 13, we read, And Moses said unto Elohim, Behold, when I come to the children of Israel, and shall say unto them, The God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they're going to say, okay, well, what's his name? And what do I say to them? And Elohim, God said unto Moses, Haya Asher Haya, which means I will be what I will be. Some translations just translate it, I am the existing one. I am what I am, I will be what I will be. And he said, Thus, this is what you shall say to the children of Israel. Haya has sent me to you. The one, the existing one has sent me. The one who will be what he will be. The one who will always be is. And that's what it means. It's the one who will always be is. The one who will be what he will be. The one who is eternally existent has sent me to you. And he said, Thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, Yehovah, Yod He Vav He, Yehovah. And now, here we have this altar, this remembrance forever and ever and ever, and it is called Yehovah Nisi. As he lifted up his hands, which represented the lifting up of his name, the exaltation of his name. And as long as Moses lifted up his name, Yehovah is our banner. Yehovah is our standard. Yehovah is the God of the universe, and we will lift up his name forever. And as long as we lift up his name, then we will prevail against our eternal enemy. Because Amalek is their eternal enemy. I will fight against Amalek from generation to generation. And it is in his name, in the lifting up of his name, that I brought you out of land of Egypt with a mighty hand, so that the entire world will know that my name is Yehovah.
You are so precious to the Almighty that he gave up his firstborn son for you. By his sacrifice, you were redeemed. Right now, when you make a donation of $25 or more to a Rood Awakening International, Michael Rood will send you The Redemption of the Firstborn, a brand new DVD teaching you can't get anywhere else.
This is an opportunity for a father and a mother to recognize that their firstborn son does not belong to them. And that firstborn son belongs to the Almighty.
It's not for sale, and it's not on YouTube. It's a special teaching reserved just for you when you donate $25 or more to a Rood Awakening in July.
Bless you and keep you.
Call today or visit our website to receive The Redemption of the Firstborn, a brand new exclusive teaching from Michael Rood.
Proverbs 22:28 tells us not to remove the ancient landmarks. The landmarks Michael is referencing are there to mark significant events that have happened in a specific location. They are there for us to remember the covenant we have with God.
It was at the rock of Rephidim, the rock which represents the Messiah, that Amalek came and fought against Israel. And Moses built an altar there, and the name of the altar he called Yehovah Nisi. The name of Yehovah shall be lifted up. I will lift up the name of Yehovah. And as Moses lifted up the name of Yehovah, as long as his hands were extended to the heavens and others supported him in that endeavor to speak forth the name, to represent his name before heaven and before the people, then he prevailed. That is why he built the altar and said, because Yehovah has sworn, Yehovah will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. And no matter what generation, the enemies that come against us, who would spoil us, who would take that which we have, as it says, beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, by following after the rudiments of this world, by following after the doctrines and commandments of men. Every generation we have Amalek hanging over us. We have Amalek who is fighting against God and fighting against us. And if we are to prevail, then we will lift up his holy name. For Yehovah is his holy name. In 1 Samuel chapter 15, we're going to begin reading. And really, it's the entire chapter here, so we may have to skip around a little bit. But it tells us that Samuel said to Saul, that Yehovah sent me to anoint you to be king over the people, over all Israel. So listen unto the words of Yehovah. I'm telling you, listen carefully. Thus saith Yehovah Tzevaot. Now, he's not saying, well, the Lord impressed upon me. No, he is saying, thus saith Yehovah. See, that's a different thing. You know, for someone to say they have an interpretation of the scripture, that's one thing. When someone says, thus saith Yehovah, now they are either prophesying truly or prophesying falsely. He said, I remember, thus saith Yehovah, I remember what Amalek did to Israel, how they laid wait for him in the way when they came up out of Egypt. Now go, and I want you to smite Amalek, completely, utterly destroy all that they have. Do not spare them, slay them, man and woman, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass, wipe them out completely. So let's continue on, verse 4. And so Saul gathered the people together and numbered them, and about 200,000 footmen, 10,000 men of Judah. And he came to a city of Amalek. He laid wait in the valley. And Saul said to the Kenites, now remember who the Kenites are. In Judges 1:16, it says, the children of the Kenite, Moses' father-in-law went up out of the city of palm trees with the children of Judah into the wilderness of Judah, which lies in the south of Arad, and they went and dwelled among the people. So they called Yitro a Kenite. Well, what is a Kenite? A Kenite is a smith. Now, there are some goofy people out there who try to say the Kenites are of the lineage of Cain. No. All the lineage of Cain died in the flood. But remember that Cain's offspring, remember Tubal-Cain? He was an instructor of every artificer of brass and iron. They were smiths. The word Kenite means smiths. We're back in 1 Samuel chapter 15. And in verse 6 here, go depart, get down from among the Amalekites, because they were dwelling among the Amalekites, lest I destroy you with them. You know, it's hard to separate the Kenites from the Amalekites if you're around them. So completely pull back. And so Saul smote the Amalekites from Havilah as they'll come clear to shore, that is, over against Egypt. And he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive. and utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. But Saul and the people spared Agag and the best of the sheep. What is he told? Destroy them all. The sheep, the oxen, everything. And he kept the best of the sheep, the best of the oxen, and of the fatlings, and of the lambs, and all that was good, and would not utterly destroy them. This is one city, the capital city, right there. Wouldn't utterly destroy them, but everything that was vile and refuse, oh, we'll destroy all them. Then came the word of Yehovah to Samuel, who wasn't in the battle at all, saying, it repents that I have set up Saul to be the king. He's turned back from following me. He has not performed my commandments. And Samuel was grieved, and he cried to Yehovah all night long over this, because he knows what it means. And so he rose up early in the morning to meet Saul, and he said, it was told that Samuel that Saul comes from Carmel to see you. And he set up a place, and he's gone down to Gilgal. So Samuel came to Shaul, and that's what his name is, Shaul, which means desired. And Shaul said, blessed be thou of Yehovah. Samuel, I have performed the commandment of Yehovah. And Samuel said, well, wait, what's the meaning of this bleating of the sheep that I hear? And I hear the lowing of the oxen. Oh, Shaul said, oh, we have brought them from the Amalekites. The people spared the best of the sheep and the oxen to sacrifice unto Yehovah, but the rest we've utterly destroyed. And Samuel said, stay here, I'm going to tell you what Yehovah said to me this night. Just stand right there. Don't even bother sitting down. And he said, say on. Samuel said, when you were little, in your own sight, you were nothing, but you were made the head of all the tribes of Israel. Yehovah anointed you to be king over Israel. Yehovah sent you on a journey and said, go and utterly destroy the sinners. These Amalekites, get rid of them. Fight against them until they're completely destroyed from the entire land. And wherefore, or why, did you not obey the voice of Yehovah? You flew upon the spoil. You did evil in the sight of Yehovah. And Saul said, well, no, I obeyed his voice. I have gone the way which Yehovah sent me, and I brought Agag, the king of the Amalekites, and I've utterly destroyed the Amalekites. But the people, they took the spoil, the sheep and the oxen, and the chief of the things that should have been destroyed, and to sacrifice unto Yehovah in Gilgal. And Samuel says, does Yehovah have delight in burnt offerings? Does that mean anything comparing to obeying his voice? To obey is better than a sacrifice. To listen to him is better than the fat of rams, because your rebellion is the sin of witchcraft. It's just like witchcraft. You are manipulating things, you are lying, you're twisting, and your stubbornness is just as bad as a sin of idolatry. Because you've rejected the word of Yehovah, he's rejected you from being king. It's over. It's done. And Shaul said, I've sinned. Okay, I've sinned. I've transgressed the commandment, and I've transgressed your words because I feared the people. I listened to them, and now pardon me, and turn again that I may worship Yehovah. And Samuel said, I will not return with you. You've rejected the word of Yehovah. He's rejected you from being king, and he turned, and as he walked away, then he grabbed a hold of the skirt of his garment, and it rent. His garment, his tzitzit, ripped off, which represents remembering to keep his commandments. And Shmuel said, Yehovah has rent the kingdom of Israel from you this day and has given it to someone that's better than you. The strength of Israel will not lie. He's not a man that he would repent. He said, I've sinned, but honor me. I pray thee, please, before the elders and before Israel, turn again that I may worship Yehovah. So Samuel turned again and went with him and worshiped Yehovah. He wouldn't embarrass him in front of everyone. And then Samuel said, bring Agag, the king of the Amalekites. Agag came unto him delicately, said, surely the bitterness of death is past. You know, let's let bygones be bygones. And Samuel said, as your sword has made children, women childless, your mother is going to be childless among women. And Samuel chopped Agag in little bitty pieces before Yehovah, and he was pleased with it. Then Samuel went to Ramah. Shaul went up to his house in Gibeah, and Samuel came no more to see Saul until the day of his death. Nevertheless, he mourned for him. And Yehovah repented that he made him king over all Israel.
Jenny, there's an interview with Dr. Oz on glutathione. I keep hearing more and more about it. How can I tell if I'm deficient in this crucial antioxidant?
Symptoms of glutathione deficiency include headaches, dizziness, weakness, lack of energy, brain fog, joint pain, inflammation, dry skin, rashes, hyperpigmentation, sleep disorders, depression, and if you get sick a lot, you can be deficient.
Wow, I'm going to make an appointment with my doctor to get my levels tested. I think I can use some glutathione. To learn more about glutathione, go to www.aroodawakening.tv/body, soul, spirit.
You are so precious to the Almighty that He gave up His firstborn Son for you. By His sacrifice, you were redeemed. Right now, when you make a donation of $25 or more to A Rood Awakening International, Michael Rood will send you The Redemption of the Firstborn, a brand new DVD teaching you can't get anywhere else.
This is an opportunity for a father and a mother to recognize that their firstborn son does not belong to them, and that firstborn son belongs to the Almighty.
It's not for sale, and it's not on YouTube. It's a special teaching reserved just for you when you donate $25 or more to A Rood Awakening in July.
Bless you and keep you.
Call today or visit our website to receive The Redemption of the Firstborn, a brand new exclusive teaching from Michael Rood.
Thank you for watching today's teaching with Michael Rood. Join us again next time for another adventure.